Okay, hey everyone, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. We have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Dievas. This is Dievas Watch Company. They were founded back in 2006, and they're a younger German brand just now approaching 20 years of experience building low-volume, high-value tool watches that innovate and resonate with watch collectors and connoisseurs worldwide. Known for collaborating directly with military personnel, field operatives, as well as watch aficionados, and acknowledging their constructive recommendations into the brand's designs, they aim to produce watches that actually work in the real world. In terms of type of watch, this is a diver, some key common characteristics, and telling what you're looking for a dive watch. Of course, you're going to find water resistance, typically paired to some type of screw-down crown, something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelet. This is their Vortex 39 Ti model, signifying titanium, and essentially it's building on the strong reception of the original Vortex. Dievas once again combines a rigorous engineering and purposeful design to produce the latest evolution of its signature model. At first glance, the multifunctional Vortex might appear to follow conventional diver or pilot watch archetypes, yet every detail reveals a design engineered for professional operating across land, sea, and air, now reimagined in a more compact form. These are going to go for $14.20, and that is direct from one of their ADs, being Nomen Watches. So big thank you to the team over at Nomen for sending this sample in over for review. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, yes, so quite a handsome piece, my goodness. It does scream that tool-tastic aesthetic, and of course, giving you a lot of minimalist, clean, Germanic design vibes, as well as on the execution side. So this is just something that speaks to me, and it speaks to, I think, a lot of folks, but not everybody knows this brand Dievas. It's a lot of times when you think of this aesthetic, yes, a titanium bezel. With amazing action. Whoa. That interrupted me. I'm sorry. I jumped way ahead. I'm not even supposed to be getting into the bezel action yet. Let's just talk about, let's start off with the dimensions. About 39.5 millimeters in diameter, 11.7 millimeters thick, and 46.1 millimeters lug to lug. Now, this is their ultra work titanium, which resists wear and oxidation. It resists wear and oxidation, which is something you're going to want to think about when you are purchasing a titanium watch. And it starts off as grade 5 titanium and adds their proprietary surface treatment that does harden the surface structure, again, to resist wear and oxidation. And it also comes in this beautiful micro blasted finish, which isn't overly dark, which can be a concern from time to time when you are wearing titanium. So I have to say, I've been very, very impressed with the durability. I mean, this thing is it's quite tough, but it's gonna stay looking new for quite some time. And again, that reminds me of brands I love, like Sinn, that I've owned over the years, and they've come and gone. This one feels like it's one to stay. Another one that I love is Damasko. And again, for a lot of those same reasons, in terms of the toughness, in terms of that minimalist aesthetic, that tool forward design, where you're going to get that form from the function, and you're getting that again here within this package from this proud younger German brand. Now, when it comes to the sapphire, it does have a beautiful AR coating, meaning that you can't really see the crystal. Look at that. That dial is extremely crisp, and you feel like you could just reach right down and touch it. They did a great job with that execution. 120 click unidirectional rotating bezel with a lumed matte ceramic insert. and I enjoy this. From the tactile engagement with the bezel grip to the audible click. Ooh, there is going to be a slight bit of rock there. Nothing too crazy. But because of how good, because you want something that's a sweet spot in between clicky and smooth. You don't want it to be overly harsh with the clicks. Yeah, I'm talking you Oris. Very, very clicky or overly smooth sometimes, like Seiko bezels can be, where they're just a little bit too smooth to where you wish you had more of a thud. Ooh. This bezel action, I like it. It's nicely dialed in and everything lines up quite well. Now, inside, you're actually going to have a Swiss Automatic Sellita SW200-1, although you can't see it, which is going to have a 40-hour power reserve and beat at 4 hertz or 28,800 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. And of course, you do have that nice solid, very sterile case back. It does have some nice etching there with your all your information. You're also going to see quick release spring bars. But before we get there, let's talk about this dial. Ooh, you're getting those 3D applied indices. You're getting this beautiful black textured dial. You're going to have the date at the 4.5 o'clock. I will say I do enjoy a good date at the 4.5, right in between, the 4 and the 5 o'clock. Of course, here in terms of legibility, I'm coming closer to the camera, so there's less light on it. It's actually at angles, so it's not going to illuminate as well. If I have it a little bit lower, you can see there a little bit easier, although it's going to be smaller. I do like that they did go for the custom date disc that does essentially keep all of the text parallel with the dial text. So that's nice, but it is quite small. I kind of wish they would have just not had a date at all or made the date a little bit larger. I will say this to me reads like a newer model, and it is a newer model. And I'll say depending on the date, different positions aren't going to be quite as handsome as it is today on the 20th. Now, sometimes you'll see essentially in the upper corner a little bit of exposure to the corner of the next day. It's not showing here right now, but I'll say from cycling through, you will notice that from time to time. It's not a deal breaker. It's just not the best alignment. And I think if you've looked at pictures of this, you've probably picked up at that again, especially depending on angles. If you're looking at it from this angle, you're going to see it a little bit more exposed. But if you're just looking at it straight on, it's less and less noticeable. But for me, being, in kind of the YouTuber watch review space, it's something that I noticed. I won't say that I think the average person would notice, but again, hey, this is Average Bros YouTube. So getting into that dial, again, you're getting painted and lumed hands, and you're actually getting multicolored super luminova. So the nice thing is during the day, the lume appears all quite stark, contrasty white, very minimalist. But once it gets dark, this thing really, really shines, literally and figuratively. So, I dig that. Also, you're going to get 200 meters of water resistance. That's where, I think I took 200 meters water resistance is more than enough. I do wish it was slightly higher. I wish it was 300 or 500 just because of how impressive this thing feels. It should, I don't know. I think mentally we are quite spoiled. I think if they were able to get it to 300 at least or to 500 for future iterations and kept this level of thinness, I think it would be, in terms of the, at least just like the overall package thematically, I think it would make a little bit more sense just because it seems so tough. And again, don't get me wrong, 200 meters is way more than anyone will ever need. I understand that. So, but in a bubble, while that makes this a perfect watch, I will say for a collector who has many, many divers to choose from at any given time of the day, I would just appreciate, again, something that feels like a more cohesive spec sheet, because this is so fully loaded. I feel like that's the only space. Is I wish that this had a little bit more water resistance, because it looks like it's just bulletproof, feels bulletproof, and 200 meters for a dedicated diver just isn't as impressive as it could be. Now, if this didn't have this diving bezel and it was smooth and this was some adventure watch, oh my gosh, it'd be amazing. You'd say, hey, like a Moulet Glassut search and rescue type of thing. Like, that would be amazing. But again, that's not this. This is a sick diver that has an amazing, robust, really beautiful, brutalist design. So yeah, it would be nice if, as bold and, outstanding as this watch is that if that water resistance was equally as outstanding. And again, 200 meters is nothing to cough at. I think it's absolutely fine, but I think upping it would just make it that much better. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Now, in terms of the lug width here, 20 millimeters. So again, really, really dialed in. That's kind of what you want. By default, you want 20 millimeter lugs. So that means all of your most common straps are going to fit this as well. And then in terms of this bracelet, it's also with that ultra work titanium. You're getting solid end links with quick release spring bars, 3 links here, fully articulated, guys. So check this out, fully articulated. When I say that, instead of this being 3 links pinned together, you can see there, you get the full swivel action. So boom, if I wanted to, for whatever reason, which I know this doesn't necessarily mean anything to everyone, but if you see that you can actually stack the link, that just shows you that this is, again, fully articulated. Now, where that comes into play on the wrist, I mean, there's only going to be so much contour you need, but look at how much it wraps. That's going to be making it easier when you're taking the watch on and off the wrist, when you're at an awkward angle. It's going to be, again, smooth. Even though it has all of these beautiful angles and facets, it's going to be quite comfortable. And oh my gosh, there's something, of course, about the feel of titanium on the wrist. Very hypoallergenic, so very cool. And then you're also going to get, of course, like you'd want, screw pin construction. You're also going to get this beautiful milled push button clasp, which is about 18.5 millimeters. Of course, the bracelet tapers down to 16 millimeters. That is a very classic taper. Think of something like, of course, the classic Rolex Submariner, where you're going 20 millimeters down to 16, and then about an 18.5 on this milled push button folding clasp with 6 positions of toolless micro adjustment. Let's see it all the way extended. Very nice still. I don't think it's very obvious that it's fully extended. Of course, you're going to notice there, this first link is actually not fully articulated, not a 3 link. It's just a little Y there. So I don't think that's unsightly or anything like that. And we go into our clicks, because it is ratcheting. And you can see, again, very nice. Very nice. So, they didn't reinvent the wheel on anything. This is not super innovative, but it is very conclusive. I love that. So yeah, so this thing just came together beautifully. With that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears quite perfectly. My goodness. Now, of course, at 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters in circumference. It's on the larger side of average, but I will say, as you can see, it's quite a tall wrist, so it's not like it's super flat and wide and accommodating. So I do have to pay attention to different, different measurements and a different proportionality to make sure that the watch wears really well. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, it's quite a bit of perspective distortion. As all of a sudden, the watch head seems much larger than it did down here. So what I'll do is keep my wrist nice and low and then tighten up the frame here so you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And as you guys can see, all of a sudden now you're still getting a close-up look, but you're seeing more of the bracelet sides and you're seeing more of the side of my wrist. And there's a little bit less of the 3D pop that you kind of had while it was a little bit closer to the lens. So, I think this is just quite a looker there. Look at the way that it lays. And I know it's not extraordinarily thin at 11.7 millimeters, but it is under 12 millimeters thick. That is pretty nice, but of course it doesn't have a ton of tricks happening. This isn't a Seiko case. This isn't a Christopher Ward case where they're trying to make the watch look thin. It's actually thin, but the design is chunky. But again, I will say that with that slight undercut on the mid case, with the downturned lugs, with that thick bezel grip there, it's just nicely balanced. You can see there, it lays on the wrist quite handsomely. I do enjoy that. Ooh, what a looker. Look at the bevels. I love the way the light is hitting these angles on here. And just because it's matte doesn't mean that it's boring. So I do enjoy that. Ooh. Okay, guys. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Yes, look at this Lume. It is absolutely nuclear. My goodness. The 3D applied Lume blocks are fantastic. And although it's always hard to compete with that level of brightness, I think the bezel insert is doing a fine job attempting to keep up. My gosh, that is fantastic Lume, guys. Very impressive. Might be the most impressive Lume ever on the channel. It's definitely up there. Of course, aesthetically, not everybody might be keen on the multicolor nature here and might prefer something a little bit more uniform. I think that this is a really cool and fun touch. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And my goodness, guys, again, this Lume is just terrific. My gosh. I could probably stay in this little section here. Maybe I throw a little black light on it. Ooh, look at just, this thing is potent. This Lume is, this just has so many things that people want in a dive watch. Tough construction. It has all the bells and whistles. You're getting fully articulated bracelet, screw pin construction. You have that great ratcheting dive suit extension / micro adjustment, all toolless. And then you're going to have this great, super legible, simple, minimalist dial, but it has fine details like the granular texturing on the matte surface, like all of these beautiful little facets. And again, it's not overly ornate or overly designed. I know when you get to something with a Lume like this, sometimes you get into some of those more over-designed watches. But I love that this it can go from this, right? Like just this, oh, that is a cool, clean looking everyday watch. And then you can get that. And then also you can get all the little facets of play and light and just a really clean, uniform execution on that finish there, that matte finish that is also hardened. And, you know, it's going to help you again. I mean, oxidation is one of the biggest things that it gets damaged on a titanium watch. It's not necessarily the titanium, it's that outer oxidized layer. So the fact that you're getting protection, physical scratch protection, and then you're also going to get protection for that outer oxidized layer because you're protecting it from oxidation. It's a double whammy. And I'm blown away that at this price point, for under $1,500, they're able to give you something this competitive, this comprehensive and conclusive in terms of its execution. So for me, guys, closing thoughts: tidy but bold presence on the wrist, very lightweight and comfortable, borderline mid-sized vibe when it is on the wrist. And yeah, I think that's how well it wears. So if you're somebody who's like, that thing looks just too big and chunky for me, think again. This might be right up your alley. Now, in terms of model variants, do check the site links for current options and availability. Now, thinking of comparable models, guys, of course, the Sinn T50, right? Titanium version of the U50, that's $4,280. Or the U50T, tegimented, right? Because this has a hardened finish on it, but it's hardened and titanium versus just being titanium or hardened steel. But even the U50T, in terms of I'm not titanium, but it's going to be that submarine steel, but it's going to have that tegimented surface treatment, that goes for $4,000, right? Even when you compare super affordable Damasko, and it's super affordable comparatively to $4,000 at $2,850, the Damasko DSub50, it can get you similar German build quality and more water resistance, right? And same thing for the U50 and T50. And then even for the Damasko, you can even get an in-house movement thanks to Damasko's improvements on the movement side. But they're all significantly more expensive with significant trade-offs in their total package. That Damasko doesn't even have a bracelet, and it's very limited in terms of the options. It's like a blacked out case, or not. And that's pretty much it, with no bracelet, with no ratcheting, dive suit extension, toolless, micro adjust, none of that. So, or a titanium, or a hardened titanium option at that. Again, sure, you could get something a little bit more mainstream in terms of the namesake, but in terms of the spec sheet, this is tough to compete with. For me, guys, bottom line, the Dievas Vortex 39 Ti is one of those rare spec-heavy divers that actually delivers a cohesive package with a clear vision and theme, apart from just hitting all of the right bullet points. It's a tough titanium diver from Germany that earns every bit of attention you'll give it, and I am just thoroughly impressed. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you're any, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.